Welcome to San Diego Integral, August 13th, 2022. Our topic for this month, the subversive and healing power of humor, presented by Alicia Dattner. And now today's host, Tom Habib.
So welcome to San Diego Integral. My name's Tom Habib. I'm part of the leadership team here at San Diego Integral, and we have an exciting presentation for you today. The name of the presentation is Humor and Creativity by a renowned comedian, Alicia Dattner. Eloy is going to introduce our guest tonight, and without further ado, it's yours, Eloy.
Thank you, Tom. I attended a integral life circling practice. That's part of their kind of relational outreach kind of stuff, work. And this one time I attended, the person that was being circled was Alicia Dattner. And I was so impressed with her presence, her vulnerability, and her self-knowledge. Like, she was able to, like, when people asked her questions, she was like be able to go right deep into the particular pain point that was an issue for her. And so that was so impressive that I didn't realize she was a comedian at the time. But I could feel that, just that powerful energy, that alive sense of aliveness. And so once I friended her, found out she was a comedian, I've enjoyed following her work. And she was primarily out of the Bay Area, and I happen to have family and friends there. I was up one time visiting when she had a group of her coaching students doing a show. And it was just so powerful to watch these people do stuff that they were totally scared of doing and had doubts that they could even do. And we use the word aliveness again. The aliveness and love it brought from the people that were there in support of those particular people, and also how they opened up to every other speaker in the room. Like, there was just such a variety of the way people express themselves. And it was just rich. It was just like, we need more of this. So that's part of why I invited Alicia. And with that, we'll turn it over to Alicia to give us a little more background on herself.
So I was going to get Alicia going by asking a question. So Alicia.
Yeah. Hi, Tom.
What role?
Thank you, Eloy.
What role does the comedian play in Integral?
Wow. So this is a great question. As Eloy mentioned, I came from circling, and I am aware of the integral theory and space through circling, through one book of Ken's. And what I can say is that the intersubjective meditation of circling is incredibly related to what we do in stand-up comedy. And I have actually started to, I didn't even realize it, but now that we're talking about it, when I'm teaching comedy and when I'm hosting a show of my students, we're talking about intersubjectivity, and we're talking about, and I say that really the person on stage is not the most important person. It's the whole ecosystem, the biosphere of the room, where the person on stage is speaking the truths. As I'm looking at the quadrants, there's the internal, and so we're bringing the internal into an external space. And then there's the collective, and we're in a group together. And so we are really in this we space of I'm saying the things that I think are on the inside of me, right? I think that all of these things that I have to say are just mine. But in reality, there are things that I end up voicing for the whole room, for the whole, and the things that I process as a performer, as a comedian, are the things that the whole room begins to resonate with. And so when you are, when you talk about comedy, you think it's all about the person on stage, and really it's an experience of, we are a biofeedback mechanism. We're one big organism of I feel something on stage and I'm transmitting that to you. And you in the audience feel something in relation to what I've said, and also you're bringing things from your life and you are transmitting that back to me. And so, you know, the more that we can all get on the same page and go, oh wow, that's a laughter of recognition, I get what you're saying,
You got
you
your
see
sword, your
the
wife starts talking, you're like, shut up.
yes, exactly like that. um
Just
so
listen to shit. If every man on earth walked around with a sword.
this is wonderful. He's heckling me. So he is so there's a biofeedback happening of, there's one person in the room who wants to interject his aspect of the collective, and then we all are rippling with that. So there's a whole realm. So anyway, comedy. We're here to, I think the role of the comedian is to bring humor and laughter, and the role of the audience is to receive that and to reciprocate with their witnessing and their experiencing of it, and that we are in this beautiful give and take that opens all of us up to something bigger. And that's what I got for that question. What else? I think that leads really beautifully into what I want to do. I really, I just gave a speech a couple days ago, and I was telling Kathy all about it, and I shared about it. And I felt in particular that this is not a place for me to give a speech. Eli was saying, you know, we don't need to hear you lecture for an hour. And so I really get that this is, we're up to an interactive experience, and that's what I'm most interested in anyway. So we're going to be all together. You guys are going to be asking me questions. We're going to do some joke coaching. We're going to do some what I really see at the root of this is laughter. You know, when we make jokes, great. Humor is it's a lot of work to make jokes and have people laugh, and it's a lot easier if we just really get back to the original intention of what we're going for, which is really that space of ease, play, humor, laughter. And so I would actually like to introduce to all of you who here, let's actually see hands, who has experienced laughter yoga before. I'm going to put myself on gallery so I could see. Raise your hand if you've had a laughter yoga experience. All right. So I started doing comedy when I turned 19, and I wanted to be a comedian since I was a kid. I love it. I love comedy. I love the experience of laughing uncontrollably, of someone dominating me into not being able to hold myself back from laughing. And after doing comedy for a number of years, I stopped enjoying it. I got to a place where I just was like not very inspired anymore. I got bitter. I was frustrated about not being more successful than I wanted to be. And I quit. I went to India. I went to therapy. I did a bunch of medicine journeys. I went to 12-step groups. I was circling. I did all of the things, you know, all the workshops, all the things. And I discovered something called laughter yoga. And I realized what I actually really want is to feel joy and to feel play. And this whole comedy thing and all the rules and all of the structures of stand-up were getting in the way of me actually enjoying my life and having a beautiful, lovely experience of the world. And all it was about was like, am I funny? Am I getting up? How's it going? Comparing myself to everybody else in the world and how I'm coming up short. So laughter yoga was a really beautiful way, foolish, ridiculous, childish, weird ass, strange thing to do that turns out to be so incredibly beneficial for our lives. And laughter is like, we have a laughter muscle. And if you don't exercise it, you don't use it. You don't use it, you lose it. And so I wanted to invite us all to have an experience of laughter in this group. And we're going to do, in a moment, we're going to do some breakouts. And we're all going to play together and have some laughter yoga. So who here has heard about the benefits and read all these studies of what laughter does? It's incredibly powerful. It increases circulation, it increases oxygen to your brain, it increases tolerance to physical and emotional pain, and it gives you a workout. It increases your creativity. It has you feel more connected and related to people. It increases your immune system. It's so good for you. It's like sex. It's like exercise. It's so helpful. And how many? I don't know. I still don't do it every day. Who here feels like, wow, I laugh enough every day? Raise your hand if you're like, wow. Can you think of, like, there are days where you're like, wow, I didn't laugh that whole day? Yeah, I go through whole days. I'm a comedian. I go through whole days where I don't feel that. So that's what we're going to do here. The amazing thing, when I became certified as a laughter yoga teacher, the two things that stuck with me the most were, number one, when you laugh, and this is great when you get into comedy, because then you start rewiring your brain to see things in a different way. And I hope that this is true. They told it to us then. When you laugh, for the 5 seconds after you laugh, your brain returns to the elasticity, the plasticity it had when you were 5 years old. So think about what that potential is for when you hear something funny, when you hear something that opens your mind, or that challenges you, or that triggers some pain, and how, sorry for the noise here, and how it could open you. The other thing that I heard that stuck with me the most is, you can fake it and your body doesn't know the difference physiologically. You can pretend to laugh and still get the benefits of it. I don't know if I 100% believe that, but I think basically, like, you fake it until you make it, and then the faking of the laughter actually gets you into a space where you start to feel real laughter. So I encourage that very much when we go into this exercise that we're going to do. And I also encourage you, when you're faking your laughter, to relax your throat and not like strain and go ha ha, but just relax. And if you don't feel it, just make some sounds with your throat. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms, and you are going to take turns making a funny laugh. And so one person is going to go ha 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 ha, and everyone is going to imitate them, ha 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 ha. And you continue that way for, a few seconds. Take a breath, and then naturally and spontaneously, without any words, somebody else is going to make a new kind of laugh. Everybody's going to, and then, keep going. And it surprisingly can actually be a little bit tiring. And eventually, hopefully, it gets to the point where everyone is just totally laughing uncontrollably, and you're not even, nobody's figuring anything out. So we're just going to do it for about 4 minutes. And I encourage you to just like take moments to breathe, be silent. Especially, I think it's important to notice how ridiculous what you're doing is and let yourself laugh at that. So again, the we space of like, whoa, this is funny, and like kind of let the feedback, let the other people's faces make you laugh. Let yourself feel a little foolish and silly. That was a moment that was really powerful for me when I was in the laughter yoga training. And I was like, oh, you're just being like a kid. You're acting like a fool, and that's what children do. And then I let go of a lot of like adult structures that are keeping me in the way of my joy. So are we ready for breakouts? Just, keep yourself relaxed, keep flowing. If you need to take a break, just take some breaths, but keep making sounds and just let yourself be in a flow. And we'll do it for about 4 minutes. Anybody have any questions before we go into this breakout?
Unmute yourself if you do. Okay, I guess we're ready.
How about that, huh? How was that for everybody? What was that like?
That was fun.
That was fun.
Fun,
Did you fun? Who got into it? Like, who really just was like, what do you I'd love to even see like some typing in the chat. If you could just say like, what do you notice different in your body that's what's different now from when we started, before we started laughing?
Can I do a quick comment?
Yeah.
So as soon as you gave the exercise, it felt like there was a permission to go to a place we usually don't go. And I felt the changes physiologically in my body before I even got in the room. It was kind of like a lighter, more playful space before we even got there. And then immediately somebody started this silly laugh and we're all losing. It was great.
It also was it's kind of like you can't fuck it up. I really liked that. Like we lost track of who was doing what, and there wasn't like a right way you had to do it.
Can you imagine what your life would be like if you gave yourself permission before anything you did, that where you created that opening, that space of you can't fuck it up, and of like this physiological, Tom, you were saying, opening and freedom of I can't do this wrong, and I have permission. I now have permission. And what a crazy thing that like all you had to do was hear someone say, you have permission to be wacky and childlike and silly, and you suddenly behaved in a whole new way. Like, how amazing, how magical is that? And what go ahead.
There's something contagious too, because I could hear Christine in the next room laughing like a donkey, and it spilled over into my group.
It is contagious.
Can you do that laugh, Christine?
No dinner for you, Tom.
I don't know what a donkey laugh is.
Oh, can you do it for us?
What was it, Tom?
It was like, hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw.
Oh, okay.
Christine, can you do it? But the two of you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe Brooke can help me out because I don't remember it. I think we were just coming up with funny laughs. Hee-haw, 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 hee-haw. I don't know. Sorry.
And you just feel like, I just feel like about 5 times happier than when we started. Like And so I'm just reading these comments. Energy was raised, energy, joy, more energy. Wow, even though it takes energy to laugh, you have more energy. And I hope you all were really relaxed as you were doing it. As Lori says, relaxed. Your jaws are sore. Your dog got into it. More relaxed. More relaxed. As I sit in front of the computer, Elo, you got hot, sweaty and hot. It's really actually exercise. It is cardiovascular exercise. Can you imagine just laughing and dancing could be all the exercise you need in your life? Was happy for no reason. Exactly. Marcy Shimoff. Happy for no reason. Yeah. Dear friend of mine, not close friend, but a dear friend. Heart chakra opening. Ha ha, Tom. Everyone was smiling broadly. Yeah, so it's like, but can you imagine going into another group and creating this intersubjective space? Notice, where could you bring that into your life? In what context could you give yourself and other people permission to feel this good? How crazy would that be? Like, why would we do something wonderful like that? And just notice, how much more connected do you feel to the others in this group at this point? So really sweet, really, really sweet. Thanks
I have a question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So laughter is incredibly a big part of your life, and it was a big discovery. So were your parents funny? How did you, growing up, discover that comedy was just for you?
I grew up in a family that really, we're Jewish, and aside from education and, safety, humor was really the highest value, the very highest. Like, if you were making people laugh, then you were the best person in the family, like this was the thing that everybody loved. And so it was competitive, what can I bring the best joke? Can I, it was how often can I be making people laugh? How often can I be making a joke? And it was collaborative because you wanted to make the other people laugh, and it brought you you were then on the inside of everything, and you were the leader and the creator of the tone. And I would say, when we were laughing and when we were joking, that was the highest tone of our family. And that really shifted, that really was like, yeah, the highest vibration of our connection outside of all of the dysfunctionality. And when I was a kid, I just knew automatically that was the most important thing. However, I don't think they wanted me to become a comedian. They were not wanting that. They were just wanting, that's like a thing you do for fun to make everybody happy, not for a living. I remember I said once I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, and my dad just, that's not a very high aspiration or something like that. And I was like, Dad, no, I want to be the guest star. And he was like, oh, okay. But yeah, there was something very early on where my dad did not really want me to do this, but he also was probably the biggest proponent of my sense of humor at the same time. And one time, my dad's a holistic doctor, and he brought me to the Gaia International Herbal Symposium when I was 14. And this was why would you know? Why would you have heard of this? But it was an herbal symposium with all of the herbal superstar healers. And I'm 14 and I'm just hanging out. And the Saturday night entertainment is this guy they had hired, I guess, to do a comedy show. And we're in like this big long yellow and white tent, and the guy gets up and he's in a white lab coat, and he asks for a volunteer to be in his comedy sketch. And I raise my hand. I'm in the third row, and I raise I'm gonna do this. He picks me, he takes me up on stage, and he decides it's an Ayurvedic clown act, and he's in an emergency room, and he is operating on, there's a volunteer patient, and he's operating on the patient, and I become the nurse, and I get a nurse's outfit, and I get a hat, and I get an operating, what's the hat that you put over your head in the operating room? Surgical cap. And so there's no instruction. I just am suddenly the nurse and the assistant in the operating room, and where there's 400 people in the audience watching this thing, and he just begins the scene, and he's operating, and he puts his hand out, scalpel, and I find this toy scalpel in the box, this big comic cartoon scalpel, and I put it in his hand, and he, as if I have slammed it into his hand, he slammed, he screams in pain. No words, by the way, there's no words. And he, or maybe just 2 words, he pulls the surgical cap over my head, and the audience cracks up, and I know what to do. I just milk it, and I enjoy the laughter, and then I pull the surgical cap up, and he goes back to operating. And then this happens again. He asks for, the scissors. Okay, and he gives the scissors. And this time I'm like, oh, I don't want to upset him. So I very, very lightly put the scissors into his hand. And ow! Oh, he screams in pain. He pulls the surgical cap over my head. And I enjoy, just letting the surgical cap, just letting the audience enjoy that laughter. And then eventually I pull it up over my head. He goes back to operating, and he's doing some other comedy things. And then one more time, he asks for, forceps or whatever he's asking for. I find the forceps, I very, very lightly place them into his hand. He takes them, he screams in pain. But then he goes back to operating, and he's doing his operating on this clown patient that he's got as a volunteer. And I stand there, and I just know in this moment, I pull the surgical cap over my own head. And I sit and I wait, and he's operating, and he's not looking up. And the audience just starts to crack up, and they're waiting, and they're watching, and he's operating, and I'm standing there just punished, just sitting, just waiting, and the tension is building and building and building and building. And the moment he looks up, and they explode into laughter, and I'm just stand there. I just stand, and there's just like this incredibly intuitive part of me that knows what to do. And not only that, I mean, like that he has completely clearly, like, he's a genius clown comic, and he set me up to know exactly what to do and to be his perfect partner with no instructions whatsoever. And so he looks up, he pulls the surgical cap back off, and slams it down on the ground. End of scene. Giant applause, 400 herbalists, in the room, that echoing, applause, and the walls of the laughter of this tent. And from that, moment on, the rest of the night and the next morning, adults are coming up to 14-year-old me saying, "Oh my God, you were so funny. You were so great." And I can't tell you, that I've had a hit of laughter before, but this is the biggest I've had. And this is just, it's so clear. Why would anyone want to do anything else? So that was a big moment for me in my life of comedy. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with human design, but I'm a projector. And I was essentially in that moment really invited to one of several moments of being invited and recognized to do comedy. So I pinpoint that as one of those invitation moments.
And then so you decided to make this your life. You go into
Yeah.
bar humor, the bro humor.
Crazy,
It doesn't
crazy.
work. You go away from it for a while. And then what gets you to go back? And then this is a leading question. So what method
Yes.
did you develop, since the background material I read says there's no structure and so forth? So tell us about what happened and how you developed your method that you're using now.
Well, so much happened. Yeah. So I tried to do comedy for like 10 years. It didn't really work. I didn't really get where I wanted to go. I quit. I did all the work that we know. And then I came back, and I realized that comedy is so much more than just the laughs. And time after time, I'd go to a new teacher and they'd say, Alicia, you gotta get vulnerable. You gotta get deep. You gotta tell the truth. And I'd be like, I've got some great one-liners. I just have to make them funnier. And they'd say, no, you have to like tell us what you're really feeling. Gotta get into the pain and find the depth and the vulnerability. And that is where you're gonna unlock the most humor, the most power, and you're gonna be the most successful. And you're gonna, have a real deep, true catharsis, and you're going to have real shift and transformation. And so I started doing that. I for the first time in my life, put myself, gave it my all. I performed, I wrote and performed with the support of many, many people, a solo show about my dream of being a famous comedian and everything that gets in my way. And I won Best Female Solo Performer and Best of the Fringe in the San Francisco Fringe Festival. And then I started teaching solo performance and comedy workshops. And that was an experience. This is an experience of bringing people into a transformational moment. And I have people come to class and I ask them, what is the most important moment of your life? Right. And they think that they have come to a comedy class and they're tricked. And I've pulled a bait and switch. And it turns out that when we really dig into the meat, the thing that is most upsetting, most painful, most challenging for us, and we bring it out into on stage and we share the deepest, most painful things that we think are going to get us kicked out of the tribe, it turns out that almost every time, let's say all the time, we're actually accepted and loved. People feel us in that intersubjective space, and we actually are healing the trauma that we have been carrying for our whole lives by letting ourselves be seen in these really deep and difficult places and finding the humor in it and finding that like ability to both be in the experience and be the witness of the experience and allow ourselves to be seen in not taking ourselves seriously. And that is a real healing. For other people to see us having something challenging come up and then holding that with love and lightness and ease, and then they get to feel the transmission of what that experience is like. How does someone else actually like have a painful experience and not suffer over it or love themselves inside of it? And then the whole audience gets to experience that too. Everybody else is feeling, wow, this person can laugh at themselves. Maybe I can too. Maybe I can first laugh at them, but maybe I could laugh at my own experience too and hold my whole pain body a little lighter. There's
Do you
more
have
there,
like
but
specific example? Maybe, I don't know, somebody with
that's
chronic
so
illness, or
so
you talk about
good, yeah. Thank you, Kathleen. So I recently, 2 days ago, I did a talk and I finished writing it 2 days ago, and it was awesome. And it involves a lot of these elements, but I was reading the whole talk. So Kathleen is very generously giving me some leading questions into some moments of the class, of the speech that I gave. And I know you guys would rather me to talk to you guys than to just, read a script. So yes, Kathleen, so good. I have been leading this workshop now, this comedy and solo performance workshop, for 6 or 7 years, and hundreds of people are coming through with their most painful, they don't think they're going to talk about their most painful thing, but they do. And so I had a woman who was really amazing. She came, a lot of people want to do stand-up comedy, which is very admirable, but also very challenging. And I encourage people to maybe kind of move toward comic storytelling instead. But she's like, I'm going to do stand-up comedy, and I'm going to do it, get this, about my family sexual abuse. And so I say, okay, go for it. So she starts, she's got some great jokes. She's coming at it like in a really good way. And she's got the jokes, and she's rehearsing for us, and we're working on the jokes. And after like 3 or 4 times, it starts to like constrict, and we can feel like there's this moment where she just can't actually do it. And she just pauses in the middle of her set, and she starts to cry. And it happened to be this bonus extra class, and it was just women in the class, and we all just come up and we're holding her, and she's crying, and obviously, as a part of the healing process of just being with her in this painful space, I say, obviously, like, you don't have to, you've done your work, you don't have to do these jokes, you don't have to do the show, you don't have to do your set. Please know that you win. Like, you're done. This is what you were going for. And there's just so much relief. We're relieved because we don't have to see her feel that pain and that suffering, and she's relieved because she's freed from having to see it up close like that. And it's just clear that she hasn't resolved fully, even though she's done lots of therapy, she hasn't fully resolved what was there. And I say, you're done. She's, thank you. It was really beautiful and healing. And then I say, this is totally optional, but if you want, you could write a story about the experience of trying to write jokes, having some great jokes, and not being able to do it. And she took that and she ran with it. The next week she came in, she had the most powerful story about, she told the story of trying to tell the jokes, of crying. She mentioned the jokes themselves, so we actually got to laugh at the jokes inside of the context of, like, actually this is really tender. And then she reclaimed the power through having told the story of, like, everybody, I'm telling this story. I am taking my power back. And the whole audience was both in laughter and tears. And it was perhaps the most powerful moment in those 7 years that I've experienced, watching this, the way that she claimed herself. And it was, it was amazing. I was blown away. And not only that, after like a week later, her boyfriend calls me up and says, oh my God, she's a whole new person to be with. Like, she's easier to connect with. She's letting me in more. Our relationship has blossomed. And so much, just so much beauty. So I just want to say, like, comedy is not all about comedy in a way, Kathleen. It's like, comedy is a tool and a vehicle and something that we're totally not in control of. And it's not a commodity. It's not something that we get to just use to do our bidding.
And there's something that you wrote in what you gave me about something being incredibly tender, about being we're attentive and we get to watch. We're like we're doulas at the emergence of this new being when the person is transformed, and we don't know where it's going to go. Like, you don't know where a baby is, but going to grow up to, but we're witnessing, and how attentive and exciting to be present, like, at that emergence.
It's so amazing. If you could be in the room where someone for the first time is telling a story that they know they have some humorous elements of, but they are like truly weaving together the work that they've done all different parts of their lives, and they're like taking all of themselves, and here's what I figured out here, and here's my insight, and here's my awareness, and here's what's funny about that, and they're just like, here I am. It's like, and they're terrified because they've never maybe done this before, and they're telling such vulnerable truth, and their family and friends are there, and I'm there, like, and they want to impress everybody, and it's this it truly is a birth. It's a coming together of this moment. And when I have people come on stage, I let the audience know, like, this is a sacred ritual that we are all part of here. We are witnessing truly a birth. And I invite you all to hold what they're doing with that level of sacredness, as if this new human is out in the world for the first time, looking out. Like, when you step into that kind of truth and humor and power, you're seeing the world in a whole new way. And so, when we all witness that newness, we get to revel in their awe, and we get to hold them with that kind of awe. And that's part of the portal that takes us into, that does the work of the transformation.
So shall we try this? With this alchemy, because I think what
let's
you
try
talked
it.
about was
Who
the
wants to try it?
exaggeration and so forth from that scalpel.
Yeah. Are you guys excited? Yeah, we're so excited. Woo! We're gonna do what you're talking about. How is it possible? Joy says, alone I smile, and together we laugh. It's a powerful way of being in relationships. Thank you for bringing laughter in my life today. Okay. Come back and watch the rest of it. Larry, I like that you have a beret on. We're really getting into it. Okay, so we're going to have an experience. Even instead of doing an 8-week course where you get on stage, we're actually just going to do it in 5 minutes. So if you are, for some reason, unable to participate, maybe just let the host know, because we're going to do an interactive, like, one-on-one in breakout rooms. Excuse me. So I call this the alchemy of laughter. And we're going to take turns. You're going to take a situation in your life. So everyone, think of a situation in your life that is present for you, that is painful, that you're suffering over. Not something that is like, a death, but something, a little more than a parking ticket. Maybe it's a parking ticket. Could be that. Something not insanely awful, but just, enough that you could have maybe it's bugging you. And it should be a specific situation, a thing that happened. So does everyone have a thing that happened? A thing? Great. So think of a thing, and then you're going to, on a scale of 1 to 5, how upsetting is it to you? 5 being the most. Rate it from 1 to 5, and just have that in your mind. Wow, this is a 5 for me, right? Or this is like a 4. And so this is our baseline. And so You're going to take this thing, and when we go into the breakout rooms, I'm going to give you the instructions all along the way. So you don't have to write this down, but you have to hear it first. And so you're going to choose a first person to go. And the first person is going to have about a minute to tell the story of that thing, of that situation. You're going to tell it to the other person. And you're going to tell it in a way that exaggerates it and makes it really awful. And you're going to be the victim of this story, and it's going to be so upsetting. And it really sucked. And you know what's wrong about this? And you're going to really have fun with it. Really give it the full cinematic treatment. Really live it up. Really exaggerate it. I'm going to tell you when to stop. The other person, and you wrap it up, the other person is going to listen really well because you're going to tell it back to them just the way they told it. You're going to say the whole thing back. You're going to tell the story. You can decide if you want to do it in first person, or you're going to say it was like this for you, or you're going to just say, decide if it's for first or second person. That's up to you. And then the person who told the story originally, so I'll give you the timing for that. It'll be about the same amount of time. That person is going to share one insight, one thing you found crazy, absurd, funny, ridiculous, beautiful, insightful. You're going to say one thing, just one sentence, like, oh, wow, I never realized XYZ. It's something that you notice about yourself or about the situation, hearing it from someone else. And then after that one sentence, you're both going to just laugh together. You're going to have like 20 seconds of laughter. So this is really important. It's part of the process of rewiring your brain around it, is to bring that laughter in right after the insight. So don't start talking and, oh, I realized this thing, and just one sentence of insight. And then the both of you together laugh for 20 or 30 seconds. And I'll be typing the instructions along the way. And then after you do that, rate how painful it is, how much suffering you're having around it afterward. And then we'll switch, and the other person is going to tell their story. Does anybody have questions around what we're doing? Okay. Are we ready to put people into breakout rooms?
Here you go. See you back. All right, I'm going to close all the breakouts.
I would love to hear some of your experience. How did it go, everybody? Yeah, let's hear from Mary, and actually type in the chat box, everybody, if you're open to it, how your pain, your suffering level, did it change from 5 to a 4, or from a 2 to a 5, or what? Type in that chat what happened for you. And Mary, what did you notice?
So we each thought that each other told our story better than we did. And kind of elaborated a little bit, accentuated things and threw in some extra gestures. And that, it was like each of us thought the other person did a better job telling the story than we did.
And what was your insight? What'd you get out of hearing somebody tell your story back to you?
I think the insight, maybe a little bit for each of us too, was that we're aware, especially if it's in an uncomfortable or difficult situation, that sometimes there's inappropriate laughter, and it must just be where we had to go, because otherwise what are you going to do? It was like this release that I can't, what can I do? I guess I'll just laugh.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else want to share an experience? What did you get out of this? What did you notice?
Sally's got her hand raised.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll share. It was just delightful to be with Phyllis, and we were both so vulnerable with each other. We both really tapped into what was up for us with pain, and that openness made us realize a deep love in that moment. It was quite extraordinary. I felt my heart open, as Phyllis also said, that we just felt really connected, that we'd shared on that level. And it gave us a little bit of objectivity to see our story being exaggerated by somebody else. And in that moment, you step back and see it, and you get a little bit of distance, and you notice that the pain is probably universal, that you're not unique, that it's a human condition in some way. And I could definitely tap into that paradox of comedy and tragedy, because I've been feeling the tragedy of this moment that I shared, and yet there was definitely comedy in it. So thank you for that, Alicia, and thank you, Phyllis. That was awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you experienced that, Sally. Just for my ego, raise your hand if your number went down, if you had less pain and suffering afterward. That's pretty cool. I find it's like 80% of the time it's less painful. Sometimes it's more painful. Sometimes you get like, you get more triggered. And I would say do it again at that point, or, do some EFT or something. But it's a really fun practice, and I encourage you to actually take it and do it out in your life. Do it with other people. Ask a friend. Lori raised her hand. Lori, hey.
Hello. I wanted to just share the experience I had with Pam. The exaggerating part that you had us do, that in and of itself, is funny.
It's so funny. It's so funny. You're like, oh my God, I'm such a ham. My victimhood is like, it's so poor me. Oh my God, life is awful. I got a hangnail. I got a parking ticket. And you're like, oh my God. And it's just fun to like, let yourself have it. Absolutely. You don't have to push it away. You don't have to pretend. And you can also at the same time notice that it's like not that big a deal.
Yeah, and then when she said my story back to me, also exaggerating, it was even funnier. It just was. Anyway, so I appreciated that part of it, the exaggerating part, because I think that adds a different level to the story, right?
Yeah.
So thank you.
So awesome. Good job. You did it. Yeah, let's see. Okay, Eloy says, went down to seeing how ridiculous the story sounded, hearing it from someone else. Exactly. Realized I was the victim and the bully. That's hilarious, right? And you winged it. Good job, Marla. And that's great. So shall we, who's excited about seeing a little joke writing in action? Yeah. It's always like, what is going to happen? I have no idea. So we're going to start. Anything else, Kathleen, that I'm not thinking of?
Right. We had a couple volunteers to get some coaching in joke writing based on their lives, Eloy and Tom. So we can transition into that.
Fantastic. So Eloy, I want to start with you. A crash course in joke writing is essentially there's a premise and a punchline. So you set up the joke by saying something universal that we can all get on board with. And you say something that is just a universal truth. Love is hard. Dating is hard. Whatever the thing is, that we all go, yeah. And then you get specific. For example, this one thing happened. So you then go into a specific area. that describes a particular example of how that premise is true. And then somehow magically the punchline arises. And we just hope that happens. So we beseech the comedy gods. We bow to the god of comedy, the goddess of comedy, and see if she wants to shine on us today. So Eloy, we'll start with just like just hearing what you are wanting to talk about, and then we'll see if we can find a premise. And I'm going to encourage, this is really exciting, everybody in the group is a joke writer. Everybody in the group can help contribute to this comedy. So we're gonna, if you find, like, we get to the moment where it's time to write a premise and we're looking for the exact right premise, type it in the chat. Maybe it's the right one. Our hive mind could be way more brilliant than we thought. And this really gets in again to the we space, to the intersubjective nature of joke writing. Because we think, oh, there's that one genius on stage. There's that one artistic genius who just creates it all. No, it turns out when you go to, when you are doing stand-up comedy, you find out that everyone is writing jokes with everyone else. If you're in a scene, we're all like contributing to each other's humor, if we're being generous, and that's how people succeed. That's how people get funnier, is they write with each other and they watch each other's jokes, and they it's way more collaborative than you think. So I just want to like continue to hammer that home for everyone, that we're all in an ecosystem together. So let's shine our light on Eloy. And what do you got?
What I have is what I saw in you is what I'm interested in is in my roles in my leadership, I kind of tend to like play a low key, helpful kind of personality. And what I want is to really shine, to like bring my gifts forward and just feel more alive in the engagement with others.
Okay, so just to name that, we're gonna like have a slight shift with Eloy from joke writing to comedy coaching. And that is a little bit, it's just a slight shift in like going from what are the funny concepts and words to how do you want to be? And so the shift involves the desire for aliveness. What does that look like? Well, aliveness in the brain is connected with truth. And truth runs on the same channel that sexuality runs on. So we don't have to talk about sex necessarily, but like the aliveness comes when we speak a truth that we were afraid to speak. So in your leadership, as it relates to this group or to your life, what is a truth that you have been hiding, that it's time to, and it doesn't have to be the most vulnerable thing ever, but like, what's something that you can tell us that like feels a little edgy?
Taking more risks, like inviting you was a risk.
Yeah. All right. So like, what the hell? How's this gonna go? Is she gonna be a good guest? I love that. So you stood up and you said like, all right, let's have a comedian come. And are you feeling more aliveness as a result of having a comedian speak at the Integral group?
Yeah, except for being in the spotlight here.
Except for do you feel less alive being in the spotlight?
Like, no, I do. No, I feel more alive. No, you're right. Yeah. I'm just kind of like, oh, here I am. Ooh, you know.
Yeah. So okay. So as you're here, like, notice what an amazing opportunity this is. All the pressure, all the like whoa, like it's everything is magnified and intensified. Like, how is it going to go? What's going to happen? And like, I'm just going to take a moment, and we're going to just like we're just going to watch you for a moment. So just let yourself be like in the expectation of like, ooh, what's going to happen? And just see yourself being seen. Take a breath. See how it feels. And then tell us, share with us some of the inner dialogue that's happening right now. What are some of the things running through your head? The little thought bugs.
I'm actually feeling a lot of love from some of the faces I see, and some others where I don't know what's going on, I feel judgment. Like,
yeah, like what do you think they're judging you? What do you think they're thinking?
Oh, I don't know. That maybe
make something up.
Maybe I don't need any more attention than I already have.
That's funny. We're not even going for funny. I'm just saying, like, that's making me laugh. Make up some other things that people are telling you. Like that people are judging you for.
You want to step it up, we need you to step it down.
And whose voice is that? Is that like a dad or a mom voice?
Oh, it's a cultural thing. It's a so I grew up Hispanic, and there was always like, who do you think you are? Don't get too big for your britches. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That's juicy. So that would be a place where I would go. And then anything else that's running through your mind as we're delving?
Oh, just the whole am I doing this right thing, like am I
and who can you at the risk of appearing really inappropriate, like whose voice is that? And can you say that like is there in this cultural realm, like is there someone who is like, keep it quiet, don't stick out?
Yeah, it would be my mother.
Yeah, so I want to hear your mom say
it. my mom would just go, if I was being too out there, she would just give me a good twisty pinch on the shoulder, and
wow, on the shoulder.
Yeah, like
I love it. Okay. And did she yeah, wow. So that was like, she didn't even need words. She would just boop.
Yep, that's
keep
enough.
Quiet.
Yep.
Wow. So it makes a lot of sense why you would kind of be like, want to hold back a bit. What's your aliveness level now, having shared all of this?
Oh, that's interesting. It's pretty high. There's this mix of energy, and so I feel my face flushing, and
that's aliveness.
Yeah.
It's not quite what we think, like a fun. It's like a weird exhilaration. It's like and then you start to, if you were in front of the crowd, you would, in front of actual, bodies, you would also feel high. You would feel a bit high. And then people might start to laugh in a couple moments, and you would feel even more high. Is there any next level of truth that you want to share with us? Any next level of like something that would have you feel even more alive?
Okay, so like in a group like this, I'm not the most intellectual person in the group, so I often feel like I'm struggling to keep up. So there's that
like
not good enough.
insecurity,
Yeah,
not good
enough.
enough.
Yeah.
Who can relate to that? Raise your hand if you can relate. Whoa, it turns out, Eloy, that pretty much, except for Larry and Cindy and Carol, nobody thinks that they are the master of integral awareness in an intellectual way. So I actually love that. It's so fun to find out, like, actually, I'm not the only one thinking this. To me, that's where I feel the most aliveness. Just that moment where you really just shared something vulnerable, and you let yourself be seen, and then all of us were like, yeah, I feel that way too. Like, I'll tell you that the Ken Wilber book, I listened to it on audio book. I didn't read it because I couldn't sit down and read the book, but I heard the whole book. It's like 10 years ago. So yeah, I think that was pretty cool. How's your aliveness?
It's up there, yeah.
It's up there.
Yeah.
It's happening. Can you see how he's brimming with, I'm kind of joking because Eloy, your level, you're like brimming with aliveness is like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty alive. So your assignment, Eloy, is to like just do some like totally out there truth telling, and also like take that storytelling and exaggerate it. Like do more exaggeration, because some people tell me like if you're codependent, that like you saying no and doing what you like, you're gonna feel like an asshole. Right? Like you have to like do way more than you go, way further outside of your comfort zone. For you, Eli, because you tend to be a bit reserved, you're gonna feel like a clown. You're gonna just feel like, oh my God, I'm going crazy. What do I look high, or like I'm on coke or something? Just to be at a normal level of like self-expression that people are like, oh yeah, that's normal. I like your bow, Christine. So yeah, I think that's I think that any appreciations for Eloy, I would love for you to write in the chat box, just like what cool thing, how cool it was to watch him take some risks. And it was like doable level of risk, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, he just shit the bed. It was like gentle and opening, and to feel you starting to open is really awesome. So great job. Roshana says, is that fear or excitement? And one of my favorite phrases is that excitement is fear with breath, or vice versa. Fear is excitement without breath. So same, right?
Thank you, Alicia.
And let's all give it up for Eloy. Good job. You did it. Yes. Christine, yeah, do you want to say something before we move into a little coaching for Tom?
Yeah, briefly, Alicia, how can we make fun of the current events and public things that are going on that are political, and how can we keep it light?
I don't know. I think it's kind of like laughing for no reason at this point. It's like, when they show those like cartoons of people in the loony bin and they're just laughing, like crazy laughing. I think a little bit of that is called for. It's just like, make a sound. Like your brain it's beyond your brain at this point. It's beyond figuring something out and thinking of something funny to say, and like, because that supposes that we know what's what. and we don't know what's what. And all that there is really at this point to me is like, let's just return to the purity of laughter. Let's return to the purity of the innocence of laughing for no reason and laughing with myself and with you. And like, let's actually just have the reunite through the purity of the laughter itself rather than any concept of what anything is about. That to me is where we're at this moment. I think that might not be what other people would say, but I think if we come back to a physiological regulated space in our bodies, we might start to have some sense of truth. And no, you can't make a joke without a claim to truth. And your claim to truth is going to be different than someone else's claim to truth. And then then you get political, and then then you've got sides, and then you've got people get offended and angry and confused and opinionated. And I don't think it's what's most helpful, unless you're with someone you already know what they believe, and you elbow them and say, that thing is funny, huh? Then you can laugh together. But I think really for us all to laugh together again, that's the most important thing. And that means laughing for no reason. But that is a great question. And yes, Derek, for voicing when my mom would breach my realm of physical safety, super uncomfortable versus easy to talk about with my dad doing it. Yeah. So don't, when you are looking to bring humor into your life, don't cross your own boundaries. Don't steamroll over yourself. Just with Eloy, we went into some difficult places, but we didn't like force him and hold him down and make him tell truths that were really not okay with him telling. And so don't do that to yourself when you're working to find comedy, because that'll just like make it hard. If you go gently, you will go further. Let's jump into a little coaching with Tom and see how we can play and laughing for no reason. Yes, totally. Tom, hi.
Hi, I'm ready. I have my universal truth.
Okay. So give it up. What is it?
My universal truth has to do with couples.
Yes.
And how we get in fights over the smallest little issue, and we feel wounded, and that we would be embarrassed if anyone knew what we're actually fighting over.
Yes.
That's the universal truth, is that space we seem to occupy with our partner, but we don't do with other people.
That we don't do with other people. So the truth, and so we're all going to play together in helping craft this universal truth, and write your version of it in the chat box, and we'll find just the exact tight, really perfect way to say it. So
punchline with it.
Yeah, well, first we'll find the truth. We'll say the truth in the tightest, best possible way. So, so it's something like, and we do what's Judy Carter is credited with this thing in the comedy Bible she created, which is like your premise starts with like, what's weird, or what's crazy, what's so it's something like, what's weird? Couples fight about the most ridiculous things that you could imagine, and they do it in private. Or something like this. Like if you knew what caused this marriage to break up, and you knew that it was the remote, you know, some, I don't know, if you knew what caused marriages to break up, you would lose, I don't know, something like that. Let's see. The real truth is that the individual fight is not the real issue. Yeah. Brooke, we're comedians. So you are perceiving the accurate thing about what's underneath, but as comedians, we have to slightly distort the truth. Just a little bit, by saying the thing that then we come around to in the end, but we can't give it away at the beginning. So you're giving a, however, you could then say, instead, like, couples is an aggregate of things, more one point on a graph that's of something that someone wants to prove. So that could be its own premise. That's a different premise. But as you'll see, we're starting to tease apart things. Like, one premise is Tom's, of like, couples fight about the most ridiculous, inane things. And then a different premise might be couples fight about basically everyone just wants to prove something. And that's what the fight is about. So those would be two different premises. So Tom, do you want to like say your premise one more time and start with like, you know what's weird, or you know what's absurd, or something like that?
You know what's really crazy?
Yeah.
Is what we fight about when we marry somebody.
Yes.
It's crazy.
That's so tight. Do you hear how everybody hear how tight that is? Now you all can pick your own premise and go, wow, can I make something that tight? Because as soon as he said that, we all just went, oh, of course. And we all were like, yeah. So you know a premise is good when you go, yeah. And you have your own story you're about to tell, right? Everybody in their head just had their own story. So you know you've got everybody on board. Bam, like that. So Tom, for example.
The other night, my wife served me fried potatoes and didn't bring me my ketchup.
What?
And I was so wounded. We could speak the rest of the night.
I believe you, actually.
It's a true story.
See, there's not even a punchline. That's what's called like that's still the setup.
No, the punchline is that he can't find the ketchup in the pantry. That's the punchline.
So if I go,
yeah.
So my friend asked me, how did last night go?
Uh-huh.
And I thought about that fight. And I didn't want to tell him what it was about. Is that okay to go? But you need a punchline somewhere, don't you?
Yeah, you need a punchline. So there's, multiple ways. Oh, that's funny. Marla says the next morning she served it to me for breakfast. I don't know. I think like it's something like, you found, so, and then once you've got the truth, then you can deviate. Then you can start making stuff up. Like, that was totally true. I totally believed you. I recommend that nobody make up a premise. Don't make up a truth and don't make up a premise. Tell the truth. Like, that ketchup was true. That's funny. Right. Don't change it. Right there, once he said the ketchup, now you can make the joke and you can invent things that are not true. So I'm just imagining like you're wounded and you're like, you get up and you're like, fuck you, and you trudge into the kitchen and you fry the ketchup and you take the butter knife and you get this ketchup and you show the wound. Oh, I can't believe you did this to me. And the ketchup is your blood. You broke my heart. I thought you loved me. That's one thing I'm imagining.
Oh, I love that. Why did I ever marry you?
Why did I marry you? You know that ketchup is the most important part of my meal. How could you? Well, you know, I hate to see what you do with mustard. You know, I hate to see like you are gonna relish this night. You are gonna relish the telling of this story. Throw in some awful puns. But I like that the idea of like, yeah, you're talking the next day to your friend and he's like, you're like, I had the worst fight. Yeah, that's funny too. Ketchup on potatoes are good. Great, Eloy. But yeah, your friend's like, yeah, what happened? Oh, are you guys okay? Yeah, no. And you're like, I don't know if we're gonna make it through this. And he's like, shit, what was it about? Oh, just thinking about the condiments. What? She wants you to wear a condom? No condiments. You fought about condiments.
Oh, I like that.
That's gonna break up your like something, you know, like play up, you know, maybe play up your embarrassment, play up your friend's shock and dismay, or your friend could be like, dude, I just had the same fight with my wife about mustard. You know, like something ridiculous like that. Condiment rage. Yeah.
Oh, I love the play on words and condiment to condom.
Yeah. Condiments. Condoms? What? Heinz versus, yeah, she could have brought you the store brand. She could have brought you the paleo ketchup that doesn't taste right. She could have brought you some old ketchup. She could, you know, the fact like, and what did you make up about her, Tom? That what did you think she was thinking? What were the things that you started thinking while you were sitting there at the table, not talking to her?
It just feels like blatant disregard.
Blatant disregard. Who is this person? Like, what else? Like, what? Who is she to not bring me my ketchup?
Yeah. Why would I marry somebody like that?
Why did I marry someone who would not serve me so I can sit at the table and wait for her to serve me? Like, why would I marry someone who would not do all the things and get all the things for me after she's already cooked dinner and cleaned up and whatever, you know, other things she's already done for you? How could she not bring the ketchup?
Right, that absurdity of the one
thing. The one, she did everything, but she couldn't do that one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe another segue there is, why are we always looking for that wrong thing?
Yeah. And I think the ketchup in the end, you know, is the metaphor. It's like the ketchup, you know, like the ketchup of life, right? You just want her to catch up. Figure out what she should just know. She should just know. Can you just catch up? Can you just, I mean, how Freudian is that? It's like this, like the phrase itself, catch up to me. Can't you? She can never catch up. She just can. She's working so hard. She's doing everything she's doing, but the one thing she can never catch up. How's that?
I like that. Catch up to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good comments in the chat.
What did the big tomato say to the little tomato? Are you my mommy? Catch up. Yeah, and Eloy says, and you couldn't do it for yourself either? Why didn't he notice that he was covered in ketchup before? He might, and acing like a French fry. Missing the spice of life. It's funny to you, Christine. Good. And let's hear Christine's perspective on it all. You're his wife, yes? You have the same last name, so I'm guessing. Is that the case? She was in the same room. Okay,
Yeah.
Christine, let's hear it. Just, I know we have to wrap up, but I want to hear, this is the real juicy stuff. Why didn't you bring him the ketchup?
He's making that up. No, I don't know. Because I don't eat ketchup, so it always is an afterthought for me. It's always like, oh yeah, that's right, you like ketchup. And I don't know why after so many years I can't think of that first, but
you weren't I think you were truly hating him at that moment. You were just like, how can I wound this man? Right? That's what you were like, how can I find the one thing that will make him feel unloved? And I'm going to do everything else for him, but not that.
I'm just going to withhold that one thing. Yes.
That one thing.
Absolutely.
Ketchup, that's funny too. Ketchup is the insult to the chef. True. It's sort of like you're like, yeah, wonderful filet mignon, but can you please pass me the ketchup?
Oh my gosh, he puts ketchup on Asian food, and it's like, no,
no, that's the French fries.
That's not a thing.
Wait, be specific. This is another, everything we're doing, every moment right here, everybody, this is all comedy coaching. Take all of this. Like, it sounds like ripping, joking, laughing, but this is every moment. There's a funny thing to learn. So Christine, what dish? So specificity. So if you say Asian food, funny, the specific dish is going to be even funnier. So what dish does Tom put ketchup on?
Like teriyaki stir fry. Okay.
Right. I want to hear he puts it on like pad thai. Like some young guy. Does he put ketchup on some young guy?
I don't know. We don't eat that. I don't know what that is.
Roshana gets it.
Is that a real food, or did you make that up?
It's a real dish, isn't it?
Oh, it's a real dish.
Soup.
Some young guy.
Oh, it's a joke. Where does he put the ketchup on some young guy? Brooke is losing it. Tom Yum? Some, what's the coconut soup? Thai coconut soup, what's that?
Tom Kha Gai.
Tom Kha Gai, thank you. You could put ketchup on Tom Kha Gai. So Tom, we hijacked the comedy writing with Christine, and notice like how much more fun it is when we get like all these voices together, and particularly like the person you were talking about. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I really like Brooke's comment. You can devise an entire subplot in Christine's head of why she didn't send the ketchup. I mean, I could see getting really psychotic like in that.
Yeah.
But how do you not cross over to, where it stays funny and even illustrative of the human condition, but not dark?
But not what?
Dark. D-A-R.
Dark. Why not be dark? I mean, everybody has a different level of acceptability for what dark is. Okay. So everybody's got a different comfort level, and also based on your character. So like you, Tom, can only go this far, and Alicia, I can go this far, and Andrew Dice Clay or Lewis Black can go this far, or Bill, Russell Brand can go out to here, and it's okay. So it depends on who you are and what your internal system allows for. But also like, like what does Christine still find funny? If you're joking about something between the two of you, and she, it's relational, right? We get back to that intersubjective, like where, what do you as a couple find how far can you go with each other that still feels really like silly and playful and, just edgy, but not like, oh, whoa. Or, just a hair back from that.
Yeah, a hair back for losing dinner.
Well, doesn't ketchup substitute for maybe other issues
Yes.
that are more serious that we're
Totally.
not speaking about, but it's, it's an analogy, right?
Ketchup is totally the metaphor, and it in fact could be a callback for the rest of your comedy set, and I think the rest of your relationship, and in fact all of our relationships. Ketchup is the metaphor, and we bring the ketchup. Oh, you didn't bring me the ketchup. Yeah, I hate you. No, it's just because I forgot, or I didn't. Do we really want to fight over the ketchup? Okay, let's fight over the ketchup.
Should we give it like 2 minutes in breakout sessions, or just get some feedback?
Let's do that. So
I've got the breakout rooms ready.
Fantastic. So we're gonna just take 2 minutes, and you're gonna jump into rooms and just share what you're taking forward from our time together, and then hopefully come back for a minute and just any last reflections or awareness. But yeah, what is something that you got today that you want to bring into your life?
There we go.
Well, I had so much fun, and I'm so glad that you all stayed and were open to the very improvised and relaxed nature of our time together. And I would love to hear, anything that you shared in a breakout room of something you're going to take home with you, and take into your life. And you can put it in the chat box if you want. Roshana.
I was just going to say that because we did this little session together, that now we have this context. So the next time we find ourselves in a spat, we can go, oh, what's our ketchup metaphor in this moment here? Thank you.
I'd like to say that we go, I love comedy. I'm kind of a jokester, and she doesn't always appreciate it. But I go to every local comedy or even national comedy shows that we can go to, because I just think that it raises the energy of everybody around us to laugh. So thank you very much, Alicia.
Thank you.
I'm glad you came. Thank you. Karen?
Yes, I didn't get a chance to say this in our breakout group, but I feel one of the things that really resounded with me that I want to remember is, Alicia, when you said, if I got this correctly, that the aliveness in our brains is based on truth. And you said something about that being connected, I think, with sexuality, but the aliveness in our minds, in our brains being based on truth, that really struck a chord with me.
I'm so glad. If that's the only thing you take, that's the most powerful thing you can take. The more truth you bring, the more aliveness you're going to feel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about truth and lies, and building your house on a rock and building your house on a sand. But that sense of aliveness, that's just thinking, yes.
It's not just like moral, just like be honest. It's like, do you want the energy to flow in your life, and do you want to feel like the energy of aliveness coursing through you? That's what truth does.
Yeah.
It's fun, scary, fun.
Yeah, thank you for that one.
Yeah.
Being conscious of our time, I think we have a couple announcements that Tom wanted to make about upcoming meetings.
Well, I'm going to just say thank you and have that be yay. Thanks for having me here. And I'm going to mute now.
Can you stick around for a while?
Yes, yeah, for a
Okay,
little
after
while.
for the open discussion. Great, thank you.
So thank you, Alicia Dattner. I was the one that gave Eloy a hard time when he suggested your name. So I think we're all pleasantly surprised how well this went, and love the integration with it. How can people learn more about you? Will it show up in the chat somewhere? You're muted. So Kathleen, can you?
Yeah, I'll put a couple websites in the chat, and I lead a weekly writing workshop, 5 to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. I would love to invite all of you. It's super affordable, and I've been leading it for a couple years now, and it's embodied and spiritually guided, and it's just really, really beautiful community. It's not focused specifically on humor, but it's focused on creativity and truth. And so I'd love to have you, and I'll send a link there.
Okay, so thank you very much. This was really fun. We need to have you back sometime in the future. So I want to remind everyone, next month is Sushant Shrestha, Integral Pluralism, Multicultural Sense-Making on September 10th. So see if you can make it. Also, we're taking donations. And you can do that on the website. So we're going into our informal segment at this point, and I wanted to make a few observations just to get us started, if I can find where I wrote them down. I think all of us tonight, we're kind of realizing what a wonderful vehicle humor is to create we space. And my initial impression was, when we get the joke, it provides a shared space where we all resonate and laugh together. So it's kind of like, what other writers have talked about in terms of sports or special operations in the military, that it is that shared focus where people aren't wandering on thoughts and having to maintain that thread, that humor becomes a focus that even opens us up to dig deeper, and under the banner of absurdity, that we can share things that reflect parts of our shadow. The second thing I got out of it is the dynamic interplay between the comedian and the audience. And I'm hoping Alicia will elaborate on this a little bit, is what sort of stillness in the moment on stage do you have to achieve in order to be a present to what wants to emerge in that moment? And I think different ones of us have tapped that when we spoken to groups, but to be able to do it as a comedian sounds like quite a feat, because it is that dynamic unfolding in that moment that makes it funny. And I just felt that creativity when Alicia opened up that space, and what joy there must be to be able to create laughter and to be fluid enough in that moment to adjust to what's emerging in the audience. Even a heckler, bringing up something that could be funny. And the third observation is a question also. We've often heard that comedians have had a lot of depression or trauma in their life. And I was wondering, do they play a role in the family in order to invoke laughter to create stability? So one, is there a lot of trauma? And two, is there a role to create stability in the family by getting people to laugh? Is that some sort of a primal thing we inherit from earlier developmental stages in order to get the group to function together? So that's my opening, that we can play off any one of those themes. I thought this presentation was wonderful. Any thoughts? You don't have to raise your hand, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on Kundalini energy and the diaphragm, and how when we cry, when we laugh, when we breathe heavily, running, orgasm, whatever it is, when the diaphragm is moving, we release energy, and it's very cathartic and healing. So however we do that, we feel reset to some kind of homeostasis afterwards. It's so valuable, whether we cry or laugh. And that's why I love that that yin yang, that tragedy comedy symbol, because they're both healing. Whether we're weeping, whether we're laughing, it's almost, when you stop seeing the split, it's the same thing. It's a movement of energy up through the body that just releases and heals. So the more we do it, the better. The more we will be in parasympathetic.
I have a question. What's the relationship between belly laughter and crying? Or is there?
I don't know if this is an open. Are you asking everyone? Are you asking me? I would totally agree with Sally. My experience of laughter and crying in the belly is really similar. It's a catharsis. It's movement of energy, and I've had moments where I laugh so hard that I cry. And I don't just laugh, like the tears actually end up being sad tears, and the laughter is sweet, and they're happening like back and forth at the same time. Like the release ends up opening like emotion, you know, grief or whatever, and I'm feeling, I can experience both at the same time. And so I think, like, if you can even sometimes see if you can be crying so hard you tip into laughter, that also can happen. Yeah. So very, very related. And I think all the more rich when you can find the two dynamically coexisting.
Yeah, this is kind of off the wall, but I have an association with the diaphragm, a very powerful association with the diaphragm. So I've done a lot of Jungian reading and exploring the depths of the human psyche. I think pretty much, I mean, this group, there are a lot of therapists in the group. This group is therapy oriented. And I think we are all familiar with the idea that our conscious personality is only a very small part of the entirety of our individual personality. And to me, the diaphragm, that physical muscle in there, to me symbolizes and stands for the boundary between the waking awareness and the personal unconscious, and that what is unconscious, when it's ready to become conscious, it has to cross the diaphragm. It's like the threshold, and I think of it as the threshold of consciousness. So what I was kind of musing on during this discussion of laughing, sobbing, you know, crying from the diaphragm, and to me that's like churning the depths and allowing things from the depths of our psyche to arise into waking awareness. I'm just kind of playing with this image now. I'm not sure how wacko that is or that that's connected, but I think see this as possibly a portal to allowing things, depths that we did not have access to become available to us.
Yeah, I hear you, Karen. To Karen's point, and also to the point about crying and laughing, some of my most profound experiences are when in meditation. So when I get to this place and these awarenesses that I'm simultaneously sobbing and laughing, I'm just sobbing in ecstasy and laughing. And to Karen's point, it's like something is coming up that I didn't even know was there. Didn't even know was possible. And great stuff. And to an earlier point, I find that when I open up into the little boy that I am, that's there, that I can be, laughing is just so much more facile and easier and natural. And to go there as a place to be able to be that spontaneous isness that can show up as laughing, and the playfulness and the spontaneity. And the challenge of going there in this group we're all very adult. We're all very mature. Maybe I'm doing some projecting here, but and it's harder for me to slip into that little boy. So my laughter, so this whole exercise the last 2 hours has been a little bit challenging because part of me just wants to go into the little boy, but I'm trying to access just laughing to laugh from an adult space, which I wasn't finding it was so easy for me. And yeah. Now I wanted to say, Eli, thank you. That was beautiful. The place you let yourself go for us, for yourself, for me. I very much appreciated that. Thank you.
I'm wondering what role silly plays, because I love silly people that can, you know, just say absurd thing after absurd thing in a shared narrative. And it takes a certain amount of trust in order to be silly, I think.
I'm already finding humor flowing more, like when Karen was talking about that barrier, I wrote in there that ketchup's a good lubricant for that barrier. So, you know, that's, I don't know where that came from. That wasn't, you know, but I love it. It feels really good to like just have that flow come through, like, and not worry about whether it lands well or not, right? It's just like, okay, I'm throwing this out there.
I'm intuitively enjoying what you said, Karen, and I don't have any proof or data to substantiate this, but I've often wondered, like when Ken and other people have spoken about ascending and descending energy, like I've often thought, I wonder if that's just a metaphor. What actually is that? But I know that he's steeped in understandings of chakras as well. That's why he changed the colors on the spiral. And I often think that diaphragm, it's like what you said, the difference between the conscious and the unconscious. There's that muscle that cuts our body in half. And like once that's flexible and moving, then ascending and descending can occur. And it's something like, I don't have any proof for this, but like laughter feels to me like the ascending, and grief and sobbing feels like the descending energy in some way. And when that diaphragm's moving, that flow can happen. When we've got a very rigid diaphragm and we're not breathing deeply, that ascending, descending current can't happen. It's cut off. And I've also noticed at the throat that happens. The voice box is another cutting off of the body. So we hold the sobbing and the laughter in that tight jaw and the mandible here, like, yeah. And the other one, of course, is the perineum. So when that's rigid, we can't, you know, the sexuality is blocked. So these kind of the muscles that cut across our body in 3 different places, when they're open, this flow, ascending, descending currents can happen. I'm just riffing.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, but beautiful riff. That ascending and descending energy, I'm convinced it's real. I'm a longtime meditator and a longtime follower of Ken Wilber. I've read every single big book he's written since starting it in 1983. So my internal cognitive operating system is very Wilberian, but I cognize the ascending and descending energies as very real. They're very subtle. And there's some actual exercise. There's some exercises in the Integral Life program, that the most readable book about Ken Wilber's program, where you actually have a very simple exercise where you circulate subtle energy up and down and up and down. And some people actually, you know, if you do pranayama or Kundalini yoga, people experience that the ascending and descending energies physically. And so I'm just really, I'm more and more captured by this idea that laughter, wow, laughter is a form of yoga. I'd heard of the concept before, but I have never had a chance to experience it. But the idea that laughter can be one of the ways that we strengthen and relax the diaphragm just to allow aliveness to throw. We don't even need to draw in all this abstruse stuff about Ken Wilber's ascending and descending energies, just that the laughter helps the whole system let the aliveness flow through our whole body. I love that idea. I'm going to be chewing on this a lot.
Thanks for reminding me about the laughter yoga, because that's now that I'm recalling, that was one of the great moments of laughing and crying at the same time, with, in a room with 20 people and doing it for an hour and a half, and just these waves of laughter. It's just so phenomenal. I haven't done that for years. I need to get back to that. That was great.
Yeah, it's like when you're at a wedding and people saying, "Why are you crying?" And you just say, "Because I'm just so happy." But you're crying. They happen at the same time for me in odd places. Yeah.
What you said, Karen, had so much resonance to me. I mean, the whole the physiological wealth of energy moving through the diaphragm. It's an incredible image. My tendency is to get more heady and to think about it. And I've been thinking about it throughout the session. Tom, you keep on using the word absurd. And I spoke a little bit to Sally about how I think that there's a real connection between humor and absurdity. And I don't think that they're exactly the same. I think that humor is part of absurdity. And I think that to me, it's like, I'm gonna digress to the yin yang symbol, and the edge, that beautiful edge in that symbol, and when you're able to move perspectives in a way that's really resonant, and you're in a room where those perspectives are really, really shifting back and forth, and you can go down the garden path, and you can really all of a sudden hit someone with just like a completely different, unexpected perspective. That is humorous. That's humor. But when you have that real clash of perspectives, that leads you into absurdity, where you can't really, there is no integration. You're both, everyone's on that edge, and there's no movement between. There's that clash. Then you're in that existential absurdity that is so incredibly painful, and like life and death painful. So I think that the two are, to me, laughter and crying are so close, because they're kind of, it's what happens at that edge. It's what happens at that edge, if there's something porous about it, or if it's,
So I did want to get an answer from Alicia about, to be a good comic, do you need a lot of trauma and depression in your life? Or is that a stereotype?
I know comedians who don't have trauma and depression, and I think it's something that people gravitate toward as a coping mechanism, to find, like, either they already are good at that because they did that in their families, or out in the world or at school. I don't, it's a great place for comics to go. It's a great place for traumatized people to go, is do comedy. How great is that, to like make it into something that pays you money and makes people love you and helps people. And ultimately, as you all know, because you're all therapists here, we except for Larry, I think ultimately, no, it's not that's we don't need to seek out pain to bring humor. And in fact, the healthier we are, the more we can bring to the stage and to other people. And it's I think of it as like percentages. Like you start out and you're super traumatized and you use it for therapy, and over time maybe you persist and you get better at it, and like 90% of you is using it for therapy and it's taking something out on someone, and 10% of you is like doing a real contribution, real service, and over time like that grows. And I try not to judge what percentage people are at, because in a way it's of service. Really depressed people are making really great jokes and they're helping depressed people. So I don't like to think of it as a, in any kind of judgmental way. And I really think, there's plenty of awful things in the world to joke about, even if your life gets wonderful. So no.
Because your background doesn't sound like it was a lot of trauma or depression. Sounds like it was
fun. No, it's awful. It's very traumatic. Very, very lots of anxiety, depression, addiction, pain, suffering, all the things. Yeah. No, I was just focusing on the fun parts.
You're jerking me around.
No, I'm not. No, super. I've very long-term, subtle, complex PTSD that I'm still trying to work out at this ripe old age of 29. No, it's hard. Life was hard, and in ways that I couldn't really see for a long time because it was subtle. But also looking back, realizing, oh, it's totally not subtle. That addiction stuff, very obvious, but not from the inside. So,
Alicia, somebody in one of I think the last breakout mentioned that, if you're in a lot of pain, the implication was, I don't want to laugh.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't take me out of my pain. Sometimes, number one, you might not want to laugh about the thing that is painful, but you might want to laugh about something else. So if something is really painful, then laugh about something that's not that. Mm-hmm. And if something is really, really painful, then don't laugh at all. Cry or distract yourself because it's too much to even take. Mm-hmm. I don't encourage anybody, especially I don't encourage anybody to try to laugh about something that doesn't feel funny. And especially I don't encourage anybody to try to make jokes on stage about something that doesn't feel funny. In a way, I kind of feel like I'm like a stunt woman, like comedians are doing things that it's like the only professionals should attempt this. Don't, like I write jokes about things that are happening in the moment and maybe it's not good for me even, because I'm still in pain around something. But does that answer your question? I don't think anyone should ever push themselves. Comedians do it because it's what we want to do, because we are taking risks with our psychological health. and it's just what, I like to talk about what hurts. And I hate when people make fun of me, and I hate when people make fun of my pain. And I don't think it's funny. And so no one should try to make you laugh at something that you don't think is funny. It's very awful. But if you can begin to find that witness place, that integrated self, or even just a little tiny crowbar, just a little, like a smallest paper thin, tiny bit of space between you and your suffering. That's the start. That's the start. You can start by laughing at somebody else who's having that same pain. That's just, little tiny bit, and then that grows a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit.
Hey, Alicia, I got another question for you, maybe kind of related, but one of the things I admire about comedians in general is the ability to pivot a perspective, like make it really different, like see things from something totally different. Like I don't know if you want to repeat this, but I love your nose job joke. Did you care to share that one?
Oh, well, it's just that like, gosh, how does it even go? I'm thinking about getting a nose job. Yeah. I just want to look more Jewish. Thinking about making it bigger. Make it bigger. My grandma called and she was like, Alicia, it's time we get you a husband. It's time we get you a nose job. Nobody wants to wake up next to a schnoz like that. Like, Grandma, oh my God. If a husband's is what we're going for, I mean, wouldn't a boob job be more effective? Or a blow job? Or a day job? It's my nose job. But I actually had a relative who, I had a breakup, and my relative recommended, how about a nose job? Like, that'll be the thing. That's the thing that's in the way of you having a relationship. Really couldn't believe it. So I had to write a joke about it. And that's how that happened.
It's amazing. I watched you start this and how much energy tonight you had to bring forth. And it feels like it sets a very open, permissive tone where people get your intent immediately. And what a lubricant it is in a group for we space. And I was thinking when I was at Club Med, anyone ever do a Club Med? And they have these facilitators, I think they call them. And, people are milling around a bar and the facilitator gets up on the bar, starts dancing raunchy. And it's amazing how much it opens up the group so that they can enjoy themselves. And
they're so good at it.
Yeah, they're so good at it. They probably have practiced it a few times.
They just have a lot of sex with each other at night. And sometimes the people who come to the Club Med, that's where they get all their juice.
It sounds like you worked at a Club Med once.
I never worked at a Club Med. I just got hit on a lot by the people that worked there.
There are those.
Brooke too. Brooke's like, yes, I know. It's just a den of sex and alcohol and free-flowing bars. Anyway, I diverted that a compliment and appreciation. I totally forget what you just said. You just giving permission. Yeah.
Houston called it social artistry. Is understanding how to bring the best out of people so that they could show up and participate. Not just silly, but even intimacy and transparency. And there's just people that naturally have to do that. Do you find it exhausting to bring that amount? Like, are you going to go crashing on the couch tonight?
When I relax and I do it my way, it's so energizing. Like I don't believe in introvert, extrovert, but like I am more and more, I don't need to be around people. I don't need them to need something from me. But when I get to do this, like when I get to be on stage, when I get to speak, like I feel like I'm living my purpose. I'm living my dream. I'm getting all this attention. I'm sharing all my wisdom with you. You guys are loving what I'm sharing. And I'm relaxed and I'm not like, oh, I have to do it the right way. Like when I think I need to do it the right way, that's when I get really exhausted. And so, no, it's so energizing. I feel like, oh my God, I want to do this 10 more times. Like, this is so much fun. This is the best thing. And I want to say, just like, we all have a very particular kind of medicine. And many of us have a medicine that is that social artistry. And we think that, like I'll see my boyfriend do it in a very different way than me and think, oh, I should do it that way. And that it would be exhausting for me. But I have a natural way that I'm really good at it. And that is so energizing. And so I want to encourage everyone to recognize the moments where that is very relaxing and natural for you. And the way that you do it could be one-on-one, or the way that you could do it could be at work or in a particular, or in therapy, that you give other people permission, space, freedom, a particular flavor of your medicine. And don't compare your version with other people, and try to do your version more. Try to do that more in your life. Find that, oh, I do it, yeah, when I'm at a water cooler, or when I'm on my bike, or whatever it is. Do that and recognize the magic of that, rather than like, oh, there are some people who are artists in the social realm, social artists, and there are some people who just aren't. No. Does that land for everybody?
Yeah, I really like the energizing quality of it. And because if it's draining us, you wonder what your connection is to the moment and the material. If it's raising shadow, it feels like it could be draining.
I mean, and again, with percentages, it's like, we don't just like come out and are really good at what we're good at. Like, I come out on stage, and in some ways, like, I notice doing a stand-up show is a bit tiring for me. It's energizing and tiring at the same time, but like, over time, the more I practice, the more I can relax as I'm doing it. And then the more energizing it is. And there are some things where it's like, oh, it's exhausting. I'm not even going to go do that because I don't even feel like it, because it's too exhausting. But there are other things where it's like, oh, this is so powerful and so amazing that it's worth me. This is my space where I work out how to be this electrified and this powerful and not tense up with it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you find the same energy on virtual forums like this Zoom conference. Do you find the same energy flowing as you do when you're on stage in person?
Not as much, but for sure more than if I was just sitting around on my computer. Yeah. It's for sure I get a lot out of it, but it's nothing like really being in person.
Yeah, because my experience in theaters, it's a very different experience from going to a movie. In a live performance, like a musical or something, there I'm not psychic, but I still sense that there's an energy flow between the performers and the audience. There's something alive in the energy right then, where with a movie, to me, it's more in my head. But on a stage thing, there's an embodied energy that seems to flow too.
Yeah. Well, let's distinguish. There's like recorded stuff, and then there's live, but in the interactive, but on a screen, and then there's live in the body.
Yeah.
And so with a recorded thing, I say this about comedy all the time, like, seeing a live comedy show is a kind of transmission that is unlike any stand-up special you watch on a TV. It's not, there's a whole other level of transmission that's happening. And I highly recommend seeing as much live as you can, because it's just a different level.
Yeah, the live stuff, there's something about being in the audience and you're in the laughter. You're not just watching the laughter.
Yeah.
As if you're on TV or internet or whatever. And I remember the first live skit show I ever saw was Jay Leno before he was anybody in Venice Beach or or Hermosa Beach, that area. And it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Alicia, have you ever done any improv stuff? Like either as a participant or a teacher or any of that?
Yeah, I love improv. I've done it since I was a kid, kind of informally. I always felt like stand-up was more my highest art form, but improv is often way more fun for me in a way. And I've participated. I did it a bunch in the pandemic because it's my place for my inner child. Like she needs it. She needs it for fuel in a way to fuel my stand-up to bring. It's kind of like laughter yoga, but more engaged. It's like I get to play and do the thing that my child wants to do. And I'm now about to teach it for starting to do some corporate teaching with improv. But it's always kind of it's more fun, but less of a focus. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that should be interesting how that goes for you in corporate.
Yeah, we'll see.
I have
It'll
a
be fun.
suggestion for us real quick is we're in the habits of turning our mics off all the time as, you know, courtesy to whoever's speaking and stuff. But it seems like in this environment, if we all had our speakers open and you hear whatever reactions happen, would seem more alive to me. So I don't know why I didn't think of it till now, but if you'd like to unmute, I'll invite you to go ahead and do that. You don't have to contribute anything, just be with us.
Problem is different sounds get clipped because Zoom only carries one at a time.
What time?
Zoom will clip sounds if people speak simultaneously. So you can't get like in a room together, multiple sounds.
Is there a way around that, Eloy? Or Jared?
As an IT person, there actually is. There are settings within Zoom that you can set, like especially for musicians, they will tend to click things that allow them to all speak or to play the instruments at the same time.
Is that the original sound setting?
I'm not sure. I really don't know.
The original sound does turn off like compensations. And I've noticed Zoom is better than it used to be they've made some improvements recently, letting people more than one person speak at once.
So
I think I'm gonna start to hop off actually, and sign off and let you guys continue the very rich, fruitful discussion. I wasn't being sarcastic.
Thank you, Alicia. This was
the fruit is the ketchup fruit.
I want to help.
Wonderful to be with you all. Thank you for having me. And
Thank you.
yeah, it was super fun.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Does this sound like a good place to end tonight?
Yeah. Yes. I was about to log off anyway.
I'm getting hungry.
So thank you everyone for joining us.
Ketchup's calling.
Come back next month, September.
Ketchup is calling.
Love everybody.
Okay, lots of love. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. For further information, including upcoming events, resources, links to our Facebook and Meetup pages, and our fabulous donate button, please visit our website at sandiegointegral.org. Donations are greatly appreciated and help us to continue to provide information and connection within the Integral community.